I see these women that are doing these extraordinary things, big and small. And it reminds me that I can have an expansive reinvention, that is an ongoing journey.
Hello, you are listening to the Late Bloomer Living podcast. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your host, and I'm so happy you're here. I created this podcast to give you inspiration and let you know you're not alone in feeling stuck in midlife. I also invite you to join the Age Agitators Club for women, where we come together monthly to hatch our plans for making waves as we age. Being part of this community for women will remind you on a regular basis that you're not too old, and it's never too late to do that thing you've been thinking about. You can find more information at latebloomerliving.com/community, and I hope to see you there. Hello, my friend. Have you ever felt like you were meant for more, but you weren't sure how to get there, or maybe even what more is? I have. Oh, you also may be in the camp of wondering if it's too late to reinvent yourself. It still happens to me. So I'm very excited for you to meet my guest today. Her name is Wendy Battles. Wendy is the host of the Reinvention Rebels podcast, and she's on a mission to show us that reinvention isn't about a complete life overhaul. It doesn't have to be. It's about embracing curiosity and courage and a willingness to evolve. In this conversation with Wendy, she shares how she made the leap into podcasting and how trusting herself and following her inner wisdom led her to where she is today. And I want you to stick around till the end because Wendy shares a really brilliant strategy for getting past the feeling of being stuck. Plus, she's offering a free gift that could spark your own reinvention. And hey, if you're feeling like you need a little more play and curiosity in your life, I'm going to be hosting the PLAYshop again soon. I have a waitlist available where you can sign up and find out when that is going to be happening. That is at latebloomerliving.com/play. So you can go sign up on the wait list there. I'm also going to have the link in the show notes for you. So, all right, let's get going. Without further ado, here's Wendy Battles. Let's go. Wendy, thank you so much for being with me today.
I am so very excited, Yvonne. I feel like you are my sister from another mister.
Me too. Me too. And can I tell you how jealous I am of your podcast name?
What? Come on.
When
Why?
I saw Reinvention Rebels, I was like, ooh, I like it. I like everything about I love the rebel idea. I mean, it's the whole thing. And I do also want to say a thank you to the folks at Parlor Games, Kate Wells, Laura Wolf in particular, for connecting us because we met at Life in the Pause in New York City in October. And you were one of the MCs. You did such a great job. So meeting you there was like the perfect first step in our relationship, I felt like. And then getting to talk to you afterwards has been like the icing on the cake. It's been really cool.
I 100% agree with all of that. And it just, I guess the stars aligned because I always feel like we meet the people we're meant to meet at just the right time in our lives. They come into our lives. Sometimes we don't even know we need them. And they appear, and the rest is unfolding.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about why you chose the name Reinvention Rebels for your podcast.
I actually think the name chose me.
Oh.
And I had been doing a lot of thinking in the fall of 2019, as I have done many times in my life, about what am I meant to do? I had been at this place before, Yvonne, trying to figure out, like, what am I meant to do? I've always been successful professionally, but I've always felt like there's something more that I'm meant to do on this earth And every decade, in my 30s, I thought about that. In my 40s, I thought about that. In my 30s, when I thought about that, it led me to becoming a voice actor.
Really? Really?
Yes,
Now you have a big old fancy responsible job. You're in
I
cybersecurity,
do. I
correct?
do. I work in cybersecurity at Yale University. I run our cybersecurity awareness program for our faculty, students, and staff, trying to help people stay safe online. So it's right? It's busy. But, my 40s, I was again thinking, what am I meant to do? And I said, oh, I'm going to become a health coach. So I went to school, I became a health coach. But then that ultimately wasn't it either. So my 50s, I was back in this thing. What am I meant to do? And I'd been asked to be on a panel at Yale that was sponsored by our future leaders of Yale, one of our affinity groups. And it was about personal branding. And I started listening in preparation. I started listening to this podcast that I found called Package Your Genius.
Wait, okay, so wait a minute. Did I hear that right? Package your genius?
Yes. So this
Ooh.
podcast was really the catalyst for me to start thinking about like what am I meant to do? And this woman, Amanda, her name is Amanda Miller Littlejohn. And I was so inspired by this podcast. I bought her workbook, and there are all these questions about your purpose and where you are and what you love doing, and all those questions we ask ourselves, which seems so fresh because I hadn't asked myself them in like a decade. And I just started to write all these notes and think deeply about things. And I started to just be much more quiet. I started cooking in silence and doing the dishes in silence. And one day, Yvonne, I was meditating and I heard these two words like a whisper: Reinvention Rebels. I was like, what?
I
Reinvention
got chills
Rebels.
up my back just then.
It's
Build
so
it and they will come.
wild. Do you know how sometimes you hear something but you don't have any idea what it means, or maybe you have a dream and you're like, I'll remember it in the morning, and in the morning you're like, what was that about? Like you have no clue.
All the time. Oh,
Right?
yeah.
I knew enough to write those two words down. I had no idea what it even meant. I didn't even know it was a podcast because not long before I'd said to myself, I love podcasts so much, but I could never be a podcast host. I don't know why I even thought that.
Hmm.
Anyway, over time, over noodling on it, I got this idea it was a podcast, even though I had no idea how to start a podcast. And just like you, I figured it out.
Yep.
But that is literally this was birthed with this tiny little idea. It came from going within and really listening to my inner wisdom and spirit that propelled me forward. And it's been a journey ever since.
So cool. Okay, so at what point did you think maybe this is a podcast? Or at what point did those two words start to turn into something that you wanted to take action on?
It had to have been within a couple of months because I remember that by February of 2020, pre-pandemic, before we knew the world was going to shut down,
Mm-hmm.
I remember that I had already hired someone on Fiverr to create podcast cover for me. So somewhere between the fall of 2019 and February of 2020, I figured out it was a podcast. And the other thing that happened is that serendipitously, or maybe it wasn't, I was listening to a podcast that I really loved called Side Hustle Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And Side Hustle Pro is a podcast that features Black women that have turned their side hustle into a profitable business. And the
Love it.
host, right? The host of this podcast, she was starting to do that. She had started this course, this self-paced course about how to start a podcast. And I thought, oh, I'm going to take that course. So that's how I really got started on trying to figure it out. That's how it was. So probably sometime that fall, I probably maybe started on that. because by February I was going literally going through step by step what you're supposed to do, and then I was at the point where I'm gonna like I need some podcast cover art, and that's when I went to Fiverr. So it was this progression that these things just showed up. The other thing that happened is that I was telling a colleague at work, "Oh, I'm going to start a podcast." You know, you start telling people even though you don't even know what the heck you're doing.
Oh yeah.
Like,
And people kind of looked at me cross-eyed, like, you're
me
gonna do
too. Like,
what?
okay.
All right.
So I was telling my friend Andrew, and he's like, "Oh, I could edit it for you." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, I do editing." He's like, "I'll just do it for free." I was like,
What?
"Yeah." So
That's just a
I,
gift. That's just a
isn't
gift,
it?
right? Oh my gosh. So he does?
So
Does he do your editing for you now?
not anymore. He did it for maybe close to 2 years.
Wow. So he totally
Yeah,
got you started. That's amazing.
totally got me started. I don't know where I would have been without him. I'm sure I would have figured it out in some other way, but
Yes, you would have. Of
right?
course. Yes.
Something about though when we feel something, when we feel like I had a knowing about this, and I can't explain how it is. I felt this knowing about this podcast, even though not that long before I'd said I'd never have a podcast. But I think that when we're open and when we have that feeling and we know ourselves and it kind of comes with ease, I didn't feel nervous about it. I just had this knowing I could figure it all out. And I think me starting to talk to people just attracted more of these things that I needed.
It's like magic, really, isn't it? When you,
Yes.
it's that phrase, what is it? Step in the net will appear. Like,
Yes.
and I have to tell you, Wendy, every time I have stepped into something and just without knowing how it was going to work, every single time that I have done something like that and taken like the leap, the net has literally appeared. I I don't know how
Me
that
too.
happens, but it does.
It's very mystical, quite
It is
frankly.
very
I
mystical.
don't understand it myself, but I know it works. I feel like it starts though with believing in ourselves. Like we have to
Yeah.
believe that this is possible, even though we don't know all the details yet, even though we might be unsure. But if there we have that knowing,
Hmm.
then we can move forward with more confidence, even if we don't know the how, but we know
Yeah.
maybe our why.
I think that is very, very much a key component is knowing your why. Like one of the things that I had to do to start the podcast myself was get out of my own way of thinking that I had to be an expert. Once I realized that I didn't need to be an expert at anything, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a coach, I'm not any of those things. All I needed to do was show up as me on the journey and bring people along with me and talk to other people on a journey and talk to them about that journey. That was it. And trust that that was going to be enough and some people are going to connect with it and hopefully the right people find it and and it's not like my new favorite phrase in the whole world is done is better than perfect because I am a recovering perfectionist.
Me too.
Yeah.
Totally relate to that.
Wow. So you dove in. Did you immediately decide you were when you first started the podcast, did you start off with interviews? Did you start off doing solo episodes? Because I know you do interviews now, and I think you also do solo episodes occasionally too, right?
I do. I do. I started off doing both. And, you know, when trying to study like what people do when they launch a podcast, they said, well, have a series of episodes already ready. So if someone loves it, they can listen to more. I wish I had done more than the three that I did. Honestly, I wish I had like five,
Mm-hmm.
but I did start off doing interviews as well as solo episodes because I had an episode that was just about introducing myself to people
Mm-hmm.
and telling my story. But I started by interviewing my friends who had reinvented themselves. And I did a mix that first season of those guest interviews and solo episodes talking about reinvention. I've continued that. I think this past season, which was season 6 for me, you know, I arbitrarily like number the seasons and give them themes. I started giving them themes, I think by season maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
I should have a theme. And one day it came to me, Own Your Awesome. That was my theme.
I love that
And
theme. Yeah.
then another came to me and I was like, do it scared, do it anyway. That was my season 6 theme.
Oh, I
And
love
or vice
it.
versa, right? And now I'm on to yeah, how I learned to better myself and never look back for season 7.
Cool.
So it is you kind of things unfold as you go. You learn as you go.
Yeah.
And this past season, I didn't have as many solo episodes. I always have like so many women, which I'm guessing for you is similar. So many people knocking on my door, like, "Can I be on your podcast?"
Yes.
And I don't, and my podcast is every other week because I have this job and I only have so much time.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to have so many more people on. I just don't have the capacity. So I think I started doing more guest episodes last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to, kind of get a little more of that balance with some more solo episodes also for the upcoming season. But
I feel
it's been
you.
an
I because I
unfolding.
do I do the podcast weekly, and I find solo episodes to be particularly challenging, frankly. I started off thinking this is going to be interviews. I did do that first solo episode, and much like you did, I called it the origin story. Why am I doing this? This is who I am, and all that stuff. But every time it came time where I told myself I was going to do a solo episode, I'd freak out and be like, "Whoa, what am I even going to talk about? I don't know." But it's funny I- now, having been doing this for five-ish, almost 5 years. It's like you said, my community of people who connect me to other people who have found the podcast and want to be on it randomly, or different. There's so many people I want, and so many good stories,
I
so
know.
many cool people
I
doing
know.
cool things in the world. And it's like, even if I were to do 52 a year, it's just not enough. It's like, oh, there's so many good. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. This is really important. Has your idea about what reinvention is, has that changed in the time that you've been doing the podcast?
Such a good question. Has my idea of reinvention changed? I would say it has. And I think in the way that I've learned by interviewing all of these phenomenal women and hearing their stories that reinvention can be so much bigger than we think. And I don't mean that we have to completely do a 180 and change our life, but I think that I learned I was playing small in my own life. I mean, I've always been up to doing interesting things, but in hearing their stories and thinking about it and applying some of the lessons I'm learning from interviewing these women, it's like I'm reinventing, I continue to reinvent. So I think I've expanded my idea of what reinvention looks like and that it can be many different things even at the same time. That there's no one way to reinvent. There's only our way, whatever that is for each of us. So I don't think there's a right or wrong about reinventing. That sometimes you hit these detours, you get to roadblocks, and that's okay because I think they it also spurs us on. Sometimes that roadblock is what we need to go a different direction that ultimately is truly what we need. Even though of
Right.
course in
And
the
the
moment like
roadblocks
I
do
can't do that.
not feel good, do they?
No, they stink. They stink. They don't feel good at all, but I see that my reinvention is evolving and it can be so much bigger than I even initially thought. So I think that's what I've learned is
Mm,
that even where we start, that might be our point of entry, but it doesn't mean that's where we're going to end up. And I see these women that are doing these extraordinary things, big and small. And it reminds me that I can have an expansive reinvention, that is an ongoing journey that you go one way and then you get to a point and you're like, oh, but maybe I need to go in this direction right now so that we can also redirect ourselves. And that has been like a big lesson for me because even though I always believe we can reinvent at any age or any stage, it doesn't matter how old we are. And all of these women reinforce that point. This idea of the subtlety of changing things up, this idea that we can press forward in new ways that maybe we hadn't seen when we started this idea of reinvention, when other things come up that might shift our thinking. I'm like, yes. Like I didn't start out when I started reinventing myself when I said, well, I'm going to really reinvent and find my purpose, which I feel like I really have. But I think, again, it's evolving. I didn't start off thinking, well, I also want to be on stages speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a ton of public speaking across my career in many different ways. And I just realized, oh, that's a part of this puzzle too. And by starting to do that, it's reminding me, yes, like, yes, I'm planting these seeds. I don't know how they're going to flower yet and what way they're going to manifest, but I think it's going to be bigger than I'm expecting. So that's what I've really learned about reinvention is that we can keep reinventing in new and different ways, and we're still growing along that journey. There's so many opportunities for us to grow as we uncover things about ourselves. So I think a lot of it boils down to curiosity and self-discovery for me. Continuing to be,
100%.
right?
I
Just
I think curiosity is like the silver bullet
yes.
for getting through anything, really. If I'm in the middle of, I don't know, a stressful moment, if I just stop and go, isn't that interesting? It brings up curiosity from it's like a stepping away from the for a moment to get curious about the situation, the moment. And it's like it's almost like becoming the observer for a second with curiosity. Like,
Yes.
oh, where could this go, or why is that happening? Or and whenever I can tap into that curiosity, it's so powerful.
It truly is.
Yeah. What have you, oh, okay. I have two burning questions in my brain for you. And let's see how this goes. One of them is based on the conversations that you've had with people over these past 4.5-ish years. Have you noticed common elements that have gone into people's stories that have been a part of their reinvention?
I have, definitely. I would say that some of the things that I see that are common threads
Mm-hmm.
among these stories of women in midlife, one, self-permission,
Mm-hmm.
getting to that point where you're like, I'm going to do me, and not feeling guilty about giving ourselves permission to live with more joy, with more fun, with more playfulness, as you talk about. And that has been this common thread I've seen. Another one would be self-trust. You get to that point where you start trusting yourself in a different way. You start trusting in your abilities to do things, to have that bigger vision for yourself, that you can do it, even though you don't know how. Like, I think so much of it goes back to we often don't have all the answers. And when I was 20 something, I didn't have all the answers. I would say, oh, well, I can't do it. I would talk myself out of it. I'd be like,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
I really like this idea, but I wasn't confident about it. Or someone would say, well, would you really do that? I mean, like, why would you want to do that? I'd be like, oh, you're right. So I would so quickly just like give up.
Oh,
And
yeah. 100%. Yep. Me
right,
too.
like
Mm-hmm.
I was so
Mm-hmm.
swayed by what people said. Like if they said, "Well, I don't know if you could do that," I'd be like, "Oh, you're right. I don't think I can do that." Like it's crazy.
What was I
But now I'm
thinking?
like,
No.
but
Yeah, of
now I'm
course
like, F
not.
that. I can do that. I can do whatever. Like how you just get to a point where you're like, you start to trust yourself. And so that's a theme I see across these interviews is women trusting in themselves, believing in themselves. And the third theme I would say is courage.
Mm,
We've all done courageous things. We've all had to do things. Sometimes we had it was what I call rise to the occasion courage. You were in a situation that you did not expect to be in, and you are faced with it, and you just have to do it. There's no time to think about it. You just do it, and you can be courageous. That's in within all of us. But more often, I believe it's courage as a choice.
Yeah,
that we decide this is the time. And even though I don't have all the answers, which is true for both of us, I believe that we were like, well, I want to start this podcast. I really don't know how, but I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to trust it's going to work out. And I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to do it anyway. So this courage to just get started, often, as you said, imperfectly, like the notion of giving up that like it has to be just right because if I had to get it just right, I probably still wouldn't even have a podcast. Come on,
exactly. You know, my business
right?
coach tells us all the time, you can't steer a parked car. So you got to
Oh,
put the car in gear and get it rolling in a direction. And then from there, you can course correct, you know?
I
But
love
if you
that.
don't even start the car, there you are sitting in park, going
Sitting in park,
nowhere.
going nowhere. And I totally am appreciating that so much because that is so true. That is so incredibly true that you just have to get started.
So without, so I, one of the things you said, which I completely agree with, is that this journey towards reinvention it's very personal. There's not a one size fits all thing for it. So I don't like to prescribe necessarily a way forward, but with that in mind, if somebody's listening right now and they are feeling stuck, are there one or two things that you could suggest for them that could give them a nudge to what could be next for them?
Two things that I can think of. One is such a simple thing, and it's really creating space to be more quiet because we have this wisdom that's within us. But I know that we all live very busy lives. We're often overstimulated, running around, spread thin. We're getting information from so many different sources, multitasking. It's hard to hear that inner voice. And I think that if you can get outside in nature, if you can go on solo walks, if you can literally just sit down and do nothing, just sit still, maybe look out the window, if you can journal and see what bubbles up. Or if you need a prompt, think about what are the things I love to do? What are the things I love to do now? What are the things I love to do as a kid that I don't do anymore as a place to start? So I think that self inquiry is a great place with simple questions, either listening to what, bubbles up that we aren't expecting and or some prompts to tease it out. So that's one thing. This thing I would suggest is talking to people we trust. We all have our cadre of people in our lives, love us, that support us, that encourage us, that know us. I think what's hard sometimes is that we're so close to ourselves that we don't have perspective. And just asking a friend or two, what are some of the things you think I'm good at? And I don't mean in that like I'm so great kind of way, obviously, but just in the self inquiry way. I'm trying to figure out what might be next for me. And I'm noodling on a bunch of different things. And I want to ask you, as you think about our friendship, our relationship, what are some things that you see in me? What are some things that you think what are some areas where you think I shine? Because getting that perspective can help us see things that maybe we can't see for ourselves. And it doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to do all those things because people said we're good at them. But I think that they're simply data points. We're trying to collect some data to gain some perspective, to be able to think about what might I do next? What feels right? And just using all of those points as input so that we can step back and look at this bigger picture of ideas and information can help us. And that's just a different way to get at this idea of what could be next for me.
I love it. Those are both gold ideas to get quiet and get input from somebody who loves you so that you're outside of your own limiting thoughts. That is so
Right?
brilliant. Yeah.
Just
Great ideas.
little bitty things. And I'll also say that I also offer people this free gift, which is 100 ways to reinvent in midlife, which is just literally 100 different ideas,
Love that.
right? Just to spark. this idea we're talking about being curious. I'm not going to do all 100 of these things, but there might be something on this list that's like take piano lessons. And I might think, well, I don't want to play the piano, but I'd love to play the violin. I've always wanted to play the violin.
Mm-hmm.
So just this idea of sparking something to explore, which you know how it goes, Yvonne. Some ideas, something is sparked, we try them, we're like, That's not for me."
Mm-hmm.
And other ideas might be the idea. We
And
gotta
I
play.
want to add to the onto that idea that if you try something and it's not for you, a lot of times I think people will go, "Well, I'm not good at that," or take it as some sort of failure when it's not failure, it's information. It's that that's not the right fit for you, you know?
Exactly.
And
Or I need to try
woo,
again.
chalk one off the
Yeah.
list. Let's try the
Right.
next thing, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, I
As
love
evidenced by,
that.
I was doing like, I was stand-up paddleboarding this past summer, and I'd had a failed attempt like 10 years before, which
Hmm.
did not end well in the ocean. And I hadn't tried it since then, but I tried it, and I was with my friends who coached me. So I was like, oh, I actually can stand up on this board. Plus, it was also a placid lake and not like the ocean.
Much better. Much
Much
better.
better. Much better
Yes.
experience. But I was like, you know what? Sometimes we have to try things again before we to get more confident or to feel like we can do something. And it still might not be like, I'm not going to become a professional stand-up paddleboarder, but I realized though that it could be fun and I could have much more fun and joy from it than I first did.
Exactly. The one of the things I love to do is take on little challenges like learning to shuffle dance. I am not going to be a professional dancer. I don't want to be a professional dancer. I want to have the joy of learning something and the challenge of trying something and going, can I even do this? I don't know. And I've started like this, I found this book, 365 days of creativity, and they're all prompts, and you go in and it gives you ideas for things to do, whether it's doodles or watercolor or whatever. Now sometimes I ignore the prompts and do something different, or I flip around until I find something I want. None of it is with the goal of becoming an artist. Like, I'm not looking to become a visual
Right.
artist. It's just to sit and do something that is outside my normal way of doing things. And that
Yes.
opens things up, that opens up your ideas about what you're capable of. And you might
Yeah.
surprise yourself. Oh, I love all this.
Exactly.
So how can people like write to you or click somewhere to get the 100 suggestions? Is that
Yeah,
a
you know
thing?
what? It is a thing. And in fact, I'll send you the link and you can even include it in the show notes if you feel so
Awesome.
inspired.
Cool.
Because it's easy and they can just click and get it. Yeah. But just
I love
again,
it.
just ideas, right? Just trying to figure out to spark something in us as we
Yes.
get curious
Oh my goodness. I wish we had more time because I love talking to you. But where can people find you?
everywhere. No, just kidding. I know you know this from having a podcast that I am Reinvention Rebels is on all of the podcast platforms. You can also go to reinventionrebels.com to hear the podcast and learn more about what I do. And of course, I'm on social media like you on LinkedIn, on Instagram at Reinvention Rebels, on Facebook. So you can
So
find
Reinvention
all those things.
Rebels is the key. Type that in and find your
Right?
way, right? And of course,
Exactly.
I'll have links in the show notes for you, especially if you're driving right now. Don't do anything. Just wait and
Right.
go home and I'll get you pointed in the right direction. Oh, Wendy, this has been tremendous. I'm so glad we finally did get to sit down and chat. And I hope that we
No.
get to go paddleboarding together in the
Mm.
future. I'm just putting out an invitation right now.
Oh my gosh. And I am saying yes, yes, yes. It sounds amazing. And we're going to do it. And I can't wait.
Me too.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your amazing podcast. It is always a joy and a pleasure to be in conversation with you.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope Wendy's stories and insights have sparked some curiosity about your own reinvention journey. Remember, you don't have to change everything. Reinvention isn't about completely changing who you are. It's about staying curious and trusting yourself and being open to what comes next. Whether it's taking time for a little quiet reflection, reaching out to those you trust for maybe some feedback, there are always ways to move forward. And don't forget Wendy's gift, 100 Ways to Reinvent in Midlife. Great place to start if you're ready to start exploring. And I will have a link to that in the show notes for you. And another reminder, if you're ready to bring some more play into your life, I'd love for you to join the waitlist for the upcoming PLAYshop that I'm offering. It's a really fun, interactive way to reclaim your joy and live playfully at any age. Just go to latebloomerliving.com/play. And of course, I will have the link in the show notes for you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, I'd very much love for you to share it with a friend who might need a little nudge to embrace their own reinvention. And there you go. Until next time, my friend, keep living playfully and bloom like you mean it.